Factory farming. It's a system that supplies most of the world's meat, dairy, and eggs, but it comes with a heavy cost. From environmental damage to the suffering of billions of animals, the impact is undeniable. But what if there was a way to create a future without factory farming? One where our food choices reflect compassion and sustainability. My guest today believes that future is within reach. Hey everybody, I'm Stephen Schauer, and welcome to Stories Sustain Us, where we explore the stories of individuals working to make our world a better, more sustainable place. Today I'm sitting down with Thom Norman, the co-founder of FarmKind. His journey from a career as a nuclear energy lawyer to launching a nonprofit dedicated to animal welfare is as inspiring as it is impactful. Thom's personal experiences shaped his understanding of compassion, leading him to create a tool called the Compassion Calculator, a resource designed to show how small actions can lead to significant change. We'll hear how Thom's early resistance to supporting animal charities transformed into a passion for bridging the funding gap for organizations fighting to end factory farming. We'll also explore why sustainability and animal welfare are deeply interconnected and how each of us can contribute to building a future without factory farming. And listen, this isn't going to be about trying to get you to stop eating meat and dairy. Rather, Thom is offering a solution for how you can support kinder, more sustainable farming, which is better for you and farm animals. Here's a little bit more about my guest, Thom Norman. He's the co-founder of FarmKind, a nonprofit dedicated to accelerating the end of factory farming by empowering compassionate people to make a difference. After working as a nuclear energy lawyer, Thom launched FarmKind to help everyone make a difference in the lives of the animals most in need, those suffering in factory farms. It's a powerful conversation about how even the smallest choices can lead to significant change. So stay with me as we dive into Thom's remarkable journey right here on Stories Sustain Us, where we are inspiring action through the power of storytelling. Thom, welcome to Stories Sustain Us. How are you?
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm doing great today, thank you.
Yeah, it's lovely to meet you, and I guess it's afternoon for you. I'm over here in the Seattle area. It's kind of early morning for me in the recording, and it's probably mid-afternoon for you. Tell everybody where you are from right now.
Yeah, thank you for getting up early to chat to me. So I'm based in London, in the UK, which is surprisingly sunny today. It's like 18 degrees Celsius. So so it's been nice. It's like the first properly sort of summery type day we've had this year.
Yeah, we're happy spring equinox. We're recording this on the first day of spring, so it looks like you guys have some. We don't here in Seattle. It's a rainy day here for us. Winter's hanging on a little bit longer. So, well, Thom, I'm really eager to get to know you and get to know your story, your personal story, and the story of FarmKind. And thank you for reaching out. By the way, I scour the internet reading stories and looking for folks to invite on the show, and you were kind enough to reach out and after watching, I guess, one of my episodes and saying you had a story to tell. So I'm really eager to hear it. So what's your story, Thom? Tell me a little bit about your journey, and then we'll get into FarmKind.
Yeah, sure. So, I think so. We're going to talk today about, kind of animal welfare and particularly factory farming. So I think where I would like to start is my own story about how I kind of found out about this stuff and how I got into it. Because I think the thing is, like, we often this can be a really difficult conversation, and so I think it's really good to start with, like, saying, like, where I came from was like living off of microwave chicken curry meals, like every kind of, like, as a young man in my first job, like I just kind of come home and like throw one of these in the microwave, and like that was what I was eating all the time. Like, animal welfare was not anywhere near the top of my kind of priority list.
Sure.
And then one day on a London Underground tube train, things changed for me. So I was sitting there with my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, and there was like they have these like little posters, like kind of advertisements, right?
Yeah.
And one of them is for kind of it's like an animal welfare charity, like about sort of factory farming and stuff like this. And my partner starts to try and engage me with it about this and talk about it. And I felt myself like very quickly becoming quite defensive. And like of course, what happens in factory farms is awful. And of course, it's like we shouldn't treat animals like this. But really, like, what we should do is the government should put some regulations in, like basic animal welfare standards. So like, that's how this problem should be solved. Like, this has got nothing to do with me, right? Like, this is,
I got stuff to do today.
Yeah, exactly. I've got to get home to my microwave curry meal, right?
Right.
And I guess like, excuse me. She says to me, like, you're not going to do that, are you? You're not in the government. You're not going to change the law. And it just kind of like hit me a bit, that one. I don't really know why, but afterwards I was thinking, like, I got really defensive, like really fast in this conversation. Yeah. And I think she's right. And I think the problem is, I don't like, that has consequences for me. And I think it's not like, oh, I changed overnight and like I completely changed my life and like started the charity straight away or anything like that. Right. This was like the start of like a long process for me of like reading some books and finding out some information and starting to kind of engage with this issue a bit more. But I think the reason I think this is a really great place to start is because I think for many people, when they start trying to think about like, the animals that we use for food in factory farms, like, what we eat and how we engage with animals like this is so personal. Like, food is such a culturally important thing.
Absolutely.
It's like wrapped up with all these memories of like childhood and all this sort of stuff.
Absolutely.
And it can be really easy to feel like, oh, I don't like this conversation. And then, so I just want to say, like, I get that. That's where I started too. Yeah. But I think that if we can like just like allow ourselves to kind of like lower those defenses for a minute and realize that actually like basically all of us really care about animals. We all like don't want to see them suffer unnecessarily. I think that's a really good place for us to start, and then we can kind of like move forward to talk about these issues and see where that conversation goes.
Yeah. Well, that's brilliant. Thank you for kind of starting us with that kind of foundation of, let's just kind of acknowledge the uncomfortableness of the conversation that's coming. I appreciate that, and that sets to me it sets a good tone of like, hey, we're going to be real in this conversation. We're not going to dance around the fact that this might be a hard conversation. So I really appreciate you kind of starting with that foundation. May I back you up in time a little bit before that day on the London Tube and find out a little bit more about, are you born and raised in London, or, how did you get from, early on to that day in the London Tube? Because there's clearly a story there, and read a little bit about your bio, and I'm real eager to learn a little bit about what you were doing at that time before you got into FarmKind, because it sounds like you've had an interesting life journey as well. So, yeah, born and raised in London, or what's your story there?
Yes, I was born in London, and then my family moved very soon after I was born out of London, because it was the area of London I was born in was like quite a kind of bit of a rough area, like quite a lot of crime, like
sure,
the like lots of like the local primary school, like for I guess like kindergarten it would be like had a knife policy for like how they were going to make sure that like their kids didn't come to school with the knives, right? Yeah. So my parents were like, let's not raise our child there. Let's go somewhere else.
Seems reasonable.
Yeah. I'm pretty glad they made that choice. Yeah. So I grew up in a small town, kind of just outside of London. That was like, it was kind of like a mix of like lots of like agricultural people and like people involved in like farming, and then also people who would like travel into bigger towns and cities for work, and that was kind of like the sort of vibe of the town. Sure.
And brothers, sisters, or your only child?
I have a brother. Just one brother who's like a few years younger than me. It was like a very normal childhood. Like my family's very involved in the local church, and so like I would like when walking down the high street, like typically see at least one or two people that I knew from from that church and stuff like this. So it's a very kind of like small town, like know lots of people around kind of kind of environment. Very different to now living in London, which is like,
Sure.
I
love London, by the way. I've been there a handful of times, and it's a thrilling city to be in. But I can appreciate the magnitude of just the crush of people as well, because it is such a giant international city. So I appreciate that. So growing up in school, like, obviously, as you already shared it, you weren't struck with the idea of taking care of factory farming in a better way when you were a child. So what was, as you were growing up, what were you doing? What was life like for you?
Yeah, so I was like I've always been like fairly sort of academically strong and stuff like this. So I was I was like a lazy but like got good grades kind of student.
I can relate to that.
And actually, I wrote like the very first thing I ever did around. So I think I always, and I think this is partly because of growing up in the church, I always like had this quite strong idea that like part of what life is about helping others.
Sure, that's great. That's brilliant.
I remember like this is the first thing I ever. It's very ironic given what I do now, but when I was in like senior school, there was like towards the end of my like school time, we had this like we organized this like fundraiser. So like every year they're like the kind of older kids are supposed to organize a school fundraiser, and you pick a charity to raise money for, and you do it by like voting amongst the kids. And I was in charge of this thing, and there were like two charities that were like kind of like picked, and one of them was an animal charity. And at the time, I was super against this. I was like, we should not do an animal charity. Like, why are we helping animals when there are so many people, like starving and in poverty and in need of our help? We should do something for like, I think I wanted to do a charity that was on like I think it was like trying to help people suffering with HIV in Africa or something like this.
Sure.
Which is
very
deeply ironic
noble,
what I do now.
very important, very also, serious issue. Right, it's still ongoing.
Also really important. Yeah,
right,
exactly.
Of course,
really important. But yes, I was very against the animal charity at that time, which I think is funny considering what I do these days.
It is. That is a good bit of irony in your life. So. So where you end up going to university, I'm assuming, and what are you academically pursuing then in your life?
Yeah, so I ended up going to university to study composing classical music.
No kidding.
Which was so it was a bit of a left turn. So when I was like in school, I like started playing in like rock bands, and I was like got really into blues music, like Stevie Ray Vaughan and like this kind of like electric blues. It's so good.
Yeah,
so
I
good.
grew up in Texas, and Stevie Ray Vaughan is
of course.
icon there. Yeah.
So I had this like DVD of his of one of his like live shows. I think it was in Houston actually. And it was it was so cool. Like he's like playing his guitar behind his neck and all this sort of stuff.
He's so good. Such a tragic loss when he passed.
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing, phenomenal musician. But so I was really into that, and then kind of really at the end of my school journey, I was like, actually, I think classical music's really cool too. Like I had a great teacher who kind of introduced me to some amazing music like Stravinsky and Debussy and these kind of people. So I taught myself to read music because I didn't read music at the time, and applied for like conservatoires, so like music universities, and somehow managed to get myself into the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama up in Glasgow. To study writing music. So that's what I did for university.
So you said you were in a rock band, or so did you play an instrument before you learned how you kind of self-taught both the instrument as well as the music reading? Is that what I'm hearing?
So I had some guitar teachers. I played electric guitar. And I had a few guitar teachers, but I taught myself to read music, and I taught myself to write music as well.
That's amazing.
It was good fun.
So what is life like then for you in Glasgow as a young, I'm assuming aspiring musician / composer / I mean, what was going on for you at that point?
So Glasgow is a city with a very bad reputation, at least in the UK, but it's a really nice, it's like a really good place. It's kind of like, I think of it as like a bit of a mini London, because it has a lot of the kind of cultural stuff, and like the entertainment and great culture and great restaurants and all this sort of stuff, but in quite a small place.
Yeah.
And you can like get out to mountains within like a sort of 40-minute train journey. So it's it's a great city. I love Glasgow.
Yeah.
So I love being there. I love being in Glasgow and kind of like sort of writing music and like going to concerts and being around creative people and musicians. There's an amazing art school there as well. So I had some friends who went there and kind of just really sort of immersing myself in culture and things like that.
So moving through then, what's the next progression then? So you're, are you pursuing this career before you get back to London on the tube with your then girlfriend, or how's the story progressing next for you? So
I made it in my second kind of like big pivot. So I went out of university, and it's really like it's very hard to get a job as a musician. I was feeling a bit burnt out. I think actually sometimes taking something you really love doing and turning it into a job isn't always the best idea.
Sure. Yeah.
And I felt that about this, where I kind of like trying to like put the pressure on to like succeed actually kind of like made it less of what I liked.
Takes some of the joy out of it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. My wife's a incredible painter, and she experienced a similar time in her life when she thought she was going to paint for a living, and it just kind of sucked some of the experience out of it when you're having to make sure that your art is getting you paid, not
commercial, and
loses some of your creative freedom and things of that nature. So I can appreciate that may be something similar you were experiencing.
And so I worked for a few years in like public relations and marketing and things. And then I coming back to this kind of wanting to help people. So my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, she was going through the immigration system in the UK because she's not originally from the UK, and the immigration system in the UK is like horrible. It's so complicated and it's like very unfair. It's been designed over years for political reasons, because lots of people kind of like don't like migrants, and the people who do like migrants are not very it's not the top of their priority list. And so it's become
talking about the United States or UK?
Well, exactly.
It's about the same.
It can be. I think this is a problem around the kind of developed world, right? And so I remember I was walking along at lunchtime thinking about like her situation, and I was like, well, I would like if you needed, like if it came to it, I would like do lots of research. I would try and help as much as I could for her. And then I thought to myself, like, if I would do that for her, like why wouldn't I do that for other people too? Because there's lots of people who need help. So I just decided almost on a whim, I was like, I'm going to become a lawyer. So I kind of went and did some research. Like, it seems like it would be possible. It's going to take me like 5 years, but I might be able to achieve this. So I did this course, which I kind of went and did a master's in the evening after work. And it did take me about 5 years, but I became a lawyer, working actually, in the end, I ended up working for the UK government. As a lawyer, and I worked on a number of things, but in the end, I ended up working on nuclear energy policy and trying to kind of like help with the kind of transition away from more sort of climate intensive kind of ways of powering the country, like coal and gas, and towards more renewable things, like in this case nuclear energy. So I did that.
I am just enamored with your journey. I love hearing people's stories and the pivots that they make, as you said, and how dramatic they can be. Like, I'm guessing you weren't thinking as a teenager that someday I'm going to be a nuclear lawyer working for the UK government, but that journey, that path that we all take is so unique and so beautiful. So I love that story. Thank you for sharing that. So is that, I'm assuming, maybe jumping ahead, is that the career you were in that fateful day on the London Tube?
Yeah, exactly. So we're almost there, right, at present day. So that was what I was doing when I sort of started thinking about animal issues, and I guess like so is this like starting to think about the sort of thing, I guess, in this like analytical, like this kind of like this way about like the kind of the principles and like the philosophy. And then I also, me and my my wife, we also got some cats. So we have two beautiful Maine Coons called Luna and Sirius. Yeah, they're amazing. They're like I don't know, they're like kind of like certainly our male one. He's like the kind of like dog version of a cat, if you like. So he'll like call when you call him, and like he loves to just like cuddle all the time. And they're also like these beautifully like quite large.
They're
cats.
big cats. Yeah.
But they're quite good if you live in London, because they compared to many other cat breeds, they're like quite happy to live indoors. Yeah. It's quite hard to have outdoor cats in London. So we had these cats, Luna and Sirius, and what you really like, what actually many of your listeners have animals, I'm sure, like dogs or cats or whatever. And what you cannot get away from when you live with animals is that they have these completely unique personalities, you know?
Yeah.
Like they're each completely individuals with like, you know, my Luna, she's like quite shy sometimes, but she's also like very like, she knows how to like emotionally manipulate you. So if you leave some treats on the countertop, she will come and she'll be so like affectionate. She'll like be headbutting you and like purring and like, because she's like, but the treats are here. Why don't you give me some of the, you need to give me those now. Whereas
manipulating
Sirius,
your emotions.
Exactly. She knows exactly what she's doing. Yeah,
absolutely.
Whereas Sirius is like, he's like super confident and like very loving, but he's also like nowhere near as smart. Like he doesn't know what's going on, like most of the time.
He's just happy to be there.
Yeah, exactly. And he's like just kind of, you know, just kind of flopping around and like cuddling, and he has this like, he's really big, but he has this like little squeak noise that he makes. He doesn't meow like a normal cat. He just kind of like does this little high pitched squeak.
Yeah.
And the reason I mention this is because when you think about these animals and you think about these animals that you love so much and you care about them, and you know, like
family.
Fortune, yeah, exactly. You spend a fortune on pet bills, and they are absolutely part of the family. But when we really think about, like, they're not that different to the other animals that we, you know, that we have in farms, like pigs. And I mean, pigs are smarter than dogs, for example. Like this is like scientifically really well demonstrated. And like, you know, chickens have these quite deep emotional. I have a friend who had a pet chicken at one point in time.
Yeah, we know some people who've got pet chickens. Yeah,
and like their relationships with those chickens are like not that different to mine with my cats. You know, like really not that different. Yeah, and I just can't help thinking, you know, if somebody was treating my cats the way that people like that we treat animals in farms, in factory farms, like I would do absolutely everything I could to like end that suffering. And there isn't really any difference between them and the pigs and chickens and cows in factory farming, other than the fact that I just don't have a personal relationship with those animals.
You're not that personally connected to it. Yeah.
And that doesn't seem like a good reason not to care to me, you know? Like, it's just not, it doesn't make them any less valuable or like valid as individuals. It doesn't make their suffering any less meaningful, I don't think. And so I think for me, this like the way I've ended up like start founding FarmKind, our charity, and working on the issue of factory farm animal suffering is putting these two things together. This like really strong emotional feeling about animals and care and compassion with this like more, I guess, like ethical thing about like just understanding that these animals are not different to the other animals or the other beings that like I interact with. And when you think you put these two things together, this is like a set of values that I think is like quite clearly shows that we should try to relieve unnecessary suffering for these animals if we can. Yeah.
No, I was listening to another podcast yesterday, actually, Inner Cosmos. It's about brain science, and they were having a conversation about consciousness and trying to figure out what it is and where it comes from, and all of these mysteries that still remain about just what's going on inside our own minds. And there was a real fascinating discussion about our animals conscious, is AI conscious, and just this idea that, as you just described, that these other creatures, clearly have intelligence. They clearly know how to communicate. They clearly have their own individual characteristics. Now we may apply our human interpretation to them because that's what we do, but that doesn't, as you so rightly pointed out, make them any less valuable or their thought of suffering any less important. So I really appreciate your perspective on that. May I go back and ask you two really important questions before we continue the transition into FarmKind? Because I don't want to lose these thoughts. The first important question is, you're a Londoner. Who's your team? Premier League. Are you? I'm a big Premier League fan, so I'm just curious.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I'm a terrible human male in that, like, actually I'm not that good at sports or into sports. Like, I used to be quite into rugby. But
rugby. Yeah, I was going to ask you, is it a Premier League or rugby? Being in Scotland, it might be rugby. Yeah.
I'm more of a rugby. I used to watch the Six Nations, which is like where all the 4 countries in the UK plus France and Italy have a game. I used to watch that all the time religiously. I love that. But yeah, I guess if I had to choose one, maybe I'd choose I don't know, Arsenal. I think
Arsenal. All right. Yeah, thank you for answering.
Is that okay? Is that the right?
Oh, totally.
Answer?
Yeah. Yeah. Of course it is. Yeah, it's you're allowed to like who you like.
What's your team?
So I'm a weird, and there's probably, if there's anybody listening to this and they're big giant football fans in UK, they're probably going to hate this answer. I love the sport. I love watching good games. So, watching the top teams play, I just want to see a good game, right? I just want to see, it's such a beautiful sport to me, the creativity and it's a giant chess match that, I don't know that people over here always fully appreciate and understand that. So I don't know that I have a particular favorite. Man U is obviously top of the list because, in the 90s, that was, one of the only teams you could ever get to watch over here.
Interesting.
Liverpool and Man U were kind of, occasionally you could catch a match over here on sports channel in the U.S. So it's not like it is today where you can watch every Premier League game, which is kind of almost what I do these days. So I just love watching good games. I'm not a fanatic about any. I mean, I love Munich and obviously the Spanish, Barcelona and Real Madrid. I just love watching the teams play. It's just such a beautiful game to me. So I'm sure Arsenal fans or somebody else, Man City fans, somebody's mad at me right now because I am not a fanatic, but I just love the game. So
I think that's a good answer. I think that's a good answer. I think there's been some studies showing how much people who are into who are really into a sports team, how much their happiness fluctuates with whether their team is winning or not.
Right.
And it's this doesn't seem worth it. I remember my uncle, so my family is all originally from Birmingham. My uncle is a really big Birmingham City football fan. Yeah. And my main childhood memory of him is when we were visiting my grandparents stuff, him coming over after the game, always being really upset because they always lost. And I don't know if you know a Birmingham accent, but it's already they all people from Birmingham always sound a bit sad anyway, and so he just sounds the most depressed man ever because of his team. But
I get that. I don't have those highs and lows of the victory, and I want to go celebrate and never lose that high, and I don't have the lows when somebody. I just love watching a good game. So, so thank you for indulging me on my enjoyment of the Premier League. The other second, more important question that I wanted to ask before we transition into FarmKind is, it seems to me that your now wife has played a very a pivotal role in your life of career choices, helping you move from musician, composer, PR professional into law, and now into this amazing nonprofit that you're running. So may I ask what her name is so we can give her some kudos and credit for helping you on your life journey, because it sounds like she's been an incredible positive influence in your life.
Yeah, she definitely has. So her name is Tashi, Tashi Thomas, and she's definitely been a massive influence on me, keeping me focused on trying to live a kind of, I guess, like an ethical life, and always sort of challenging me, pushing me to be a better person, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, one of the things like that I really love about her is I think she's like definitely a lot smarter than me, and so it's good to be proved wrong so often, I think, because that helps me to become a better person. Though.
Absolutely. I feel the same way about Ashley, my lovely wife. And so Tashi, thank you. If you're listening or watching this, thank you for helping Thom on his journey, because he's helping make the world a better place. So I just wanted to give some credit where credit was due, it sounded like.
Sounds good. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So we're into FarmKind now. How did you get from that London tube, thinking about your cats and how you wouldn't want them treated in a poor way, and eventually now getting to the formation of this nonprofit? So let us hear that journey, and then tell us what it is that you do, and looking forward to hearing how we can support you.
Yeah, awesome. So the way this comes about is, I guess, like there's a realization, first of all, which is there is this amazing like David and Goliath story in the animal space. The meat industry, the global meat industry, is worth about $2 trillion. The movement to protect and prevent suffering for farmed animals has globally about $290 million in funding each annually. So that is, for context, that's about 2 weeks worth of profits at McDonald's.
Yeah.
It's like nothing.
Right.
This is to help literally billions of animals around the world to try and prevent their suffering. And despite this massive difference in funding, actually the animal movement is making success. Like it's David and Goliath, because David is actually still winning, really. So as an example, just a simple example, 15 years ago, only 4% of chickens that were being raised to make eggs in the US lived out of cages. So 96% of chickens live their entire life in a cage that's about the size, it's about this big, which is, this is like roughly a piece of paper. And that's all the space that they would have. And they're on metal grills that can cut up their feet. Like, it's a really, really horrible place. Like they can't, literally can't even open their wings, right? Yeah. And this is where they spend their entire life, which is roughly, it's a bit over a year that they live. Producing as many eggs as possible, and then when they produce slightly fewer eggs, they're killed. Yeah. Because of the work of charities like the Humane League, working on these campaigns where they pressure companies like Walmart or Burger King or KFC to say, we promise we'll stop buying eggs from caged hens. Yeah. Now, 40% of chickens, egg-laying chickens in the US, live cage-free. Yeah. That's a huge difference in the lives of...
bit of progress.
Yeah, it's great progress in the lives of hundreds of millions of animals. It's making a really, it doesn't mean their lives are perfect, but it's made a massive transformational difference in the quality of their lives. And the amount of money that was spent on this means that, roughly speaking, it costs about 85 cents per chicken to do this. So for 85 cents, you can give a chicken a completely different kind of life. Yeah. And this is just one example of it's probably one of the most stark, but it's one example of the wins that the animal movement is having to protect and improve the lives of animals. Yeah. But it's still, like, this $290 million is still, like, a really small amount of money. And the biggest thing standing between the animal movement and helping more animals is the amount of money. It's just not enough.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. And so really this is like, FarmKind was created to try to help with this problem. To say, okay, there are great charities doing amazing things, but they're just not getting the support they need. 97% of donations to animals go to companion animals, so dogs and cats, like shelters, this kind of thing. They
Yeah.
do some amazing work, but
Yeah.
that's like globally about 800 million animals, and then you have like 180 billion animals that are in factory farms. So it's just a case of we need to like even this up a little bit.
Sure,
you know?
and it's that connection you're talking about again, that we feel that more connected to a pet versus a farm animal. So how do we raise that awareness and change people's mindsets around those thought patterns?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so FarmKind we started, me and my co-founder started this charity to try and fix this problem, but also to help people, because one of the things that I find amazing is actually like how we tend to think of ourselves, I think, an ordinary person, like, I try and help people out and try to do my bit. We don't actually always realize how much impact we can have on the world, how much positive impact we can have.
Yeah.
So to me, the idea that I can, for like a few dollars, transform the life of an animal, for about $5,000 roughly, you can save the life of a human being if you donate to, for example, an anti-malaria charity. That's like really quite exciting, because it's giving me the opportunity as someone of like normal means, not very rich, not very, not politically powerful, to still make a really positive impact on the world around me and for other beings. And that's like really cool. It gives you the ability to actually like make a difference, you know? What you need to do, I can
see it in you, and I can hear it in your. I mean, I can just see and feel and hear your passion about it. That's beautiful. Yeah.
And what you need to be able to do that is just like, you need the information to know what are good charities that will use your money wisely, that will actually make an impact, and you need to know like how much to give and where and how to do it, right? And so FarmKind does that for people. So we say we're like if you know Wirecutter, the New York Times like product review service.
Yeah.
We're like Wirecutter, but for animal charities. So what we do is we work with experts to find really great charities that are doing a lot to help animals, that are currently in factory farming. And then we promote them to people. We say, look, if you want to help with this issue, if you'd like to be part of the solution, like a very simple thing you can do that can have a really big impact is to donate to any of these 6 charities. We show you exactly how many animals you'll help. So we have like these calculators that will show you your impact and all this kind of thing. We don't keep any of the money that people donate through us. And so you can just make this direct impact for animals in a positive way.
And I want to repeat what you just said, because I think that is an incredibly big deal and important to be restated. 100% of the donations made through your site goes to the charity. I saw that on your website, which your website's wonderful, by the way. It's a really great,
thank you.
Really great website. That's, so very impressive, because, you hear about charities, if they are 90% of the donation goes to support the cause, that's a pretty good charity, a 10% overhead or a 5% overhead. And I get that people working at charities got to pull a salary too, and there's legal expenses and there's other things. I get that nonprofits need revenue, so I'm not against that, that they pull some of that out of the donation to run the business. Makes sense. But the fact that you're, I guess, grant funded, I read on your website,
that's
so
right,
that you're in a place where all of the donations go to the charities. And that's just, I think, again, that needs to be magnified and shared a few times, so people get that message, that it's their contribution is going to the cause they're contributing to.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, thank you.
Where then the grant funding, where is that coming from? Is that from other philanthropic organizations, or government grants, or how are you then staying afloat yourself, since all the money then is going somewhere else?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we are funded by large philanthropic organizations, and also by just some individuals who've got a little bit more money to give and want to support the work that we're doing. Essentially, what we do is we come to them and say, look, we all can see, everyone in the animal movement is talking about the fact that there's not enough money to all the amazing work that could be done. We are trying to solve that and help doing that. Would you like to, support us to be able to do that work? And yes, we're lucky that organizations believe in us, believe in our approach, and have given us funding to be able to do this and ensure that, as I say, when you donate through us, all your donation goes to those charities and directly to helping animals.
Yeah. And it looks, if I saw it correctly on your website, there's currently 6 charities that have been vetted through your process that your organization supports. Do you want to mention those, or obviously we want to drive traffic to your website? And I guess a kind of a secondary question: are you reviewing other charities? Will that list grow from 6 to something else in the future?
Yeah. So I'm very happy to talk about charities. Our organization exists to try to help people donate to them. So if you hear this and you go straight to their website and donate to them, that's fine with me. I don't mind.
Great. I appreciate that global perspective of what you're trying. Just get the job done, get the good work done.
Exactly.
Right.
But so our charities are, we have 6 of them. They work on both helping animals right now and protecting animals from unnecessary suffering today, and also trying to build a future food system that is environmentally sustainable, that's good for people's health, and that will involve far less animal suffering. So we have the Humane League, which I talked about before. They work on these cage-free campaigns. We have the Fish Welfare Initiative, which works with farm fish, particularly in India. The Shrimp Welfare Project, which is an interesting one. They work to help shrimp, which are actually the most farmed animal in the world in terms of the numbers of animals, and have almost no protections for their welfare. Wow. So it's really important charity. Bit weird for some people, I can get behind pigs, but maybe not the shrimp. But it's important stuff.
Well, you also have a menu of charities to choose from. If
exactly, if that's not, if that's not for you, absolutely. And then we have also DVF, which is an organisation that works on opening up government money to do things like helping farmers who want to transition out of animal agriculture and into more environmentally sustainable forms of agriculture, certain types of plant farming, to do that. The Good Food Institute, which works on nurturing the alternative protein market. So this is plant-based proteins, but also things like cultivated meat, where you can and things like this, which are massively environmentally better and also involve no animal suffering at all. And then finally Synergia Animal, who they do lots of these corporate campaigns, but specifically in parts of the world like Southeast Asia, where almost no work is being done to protect animals. The farming is growing at the fastest rate, and hardly any funding is going there. So they're really, really important, because farmed animals are the most neglected animals in terms of our help, and these are the most neglected of those animals. The most neglected of the most neglected. So really, really important work that they do, and they've helped over the last year or so 5 million pigs to be freed up from intense confinement and unnecessary suffering by not using anesthetics and things like this. So they're doing some amazing work.
Yeah. And most of those 6, if I understand it correctly, also as you touched on, are also not just about animal welfare, but sustainable practices in general. So how can some of the climate issues be addressed? Lowering our impact on how we are impacting the world with regards to our own footprint. So tell me a little bit about how those are intertwined, both the doing things healthier for and to minimize suffering for the animals, but also pushing these sustainable practices that are better for the planet overall, not just the animal, but for all of us. So
I think that's a really good point. So people say, factory farming, it might be bad, but it's necessary because we need to feed ourselves, and how else would we do it? The problem is that it's actually really, really inefficient. So how it works is you have to feed these animals on something, right? And you have to feed them in order to grow them as quickly as possible, because that's economically better. You have to feed them on very high protein diets. So what we typically do is we farm a lot of land for crops like corn and soy, and then that involves a lot of deforestation. And then we take that crop and that corn and soy, and feed it to the farmed animals in these big giant barns where they outside, excuse me. And what this does is it takes a lot of calories and a lot of protein, and turns it into quite a small amount. So so there's some big studies looking at like this kind of like transition of energy from like into animal products, and it found that we waste about 33% of the calories that we produce by feeding them through this animal agriculture process. Yeah. And when it comes to protein, we only produce about 17% of the protein that we eat from animals, and yet it's about 80% of total land used for agriculture is in some way involved in the animal process. So this is a massively wasteful way to produce food. And what that means is we're using more land, we're using more water, and we're producing far more carbon emissions than we would do if we had some alternative way of producing enough food for everybody.
Right. Not only are the carbon production, but the clearing of forests, have the carbon's getting hit on both ends. We're
exactly.
Pulling the trees that are helpful for carbon reduction and producing more carbon along the way, and adding into that the other methane gas, for example, from farmed cattle, and one of the prime greenhouse gas producers is coming from cattle. I know there's some other fascinating work being done about how can we feed cattle seaweed or other enzymes or other things that can help help make them a little less gassy. So so I really appreciate the holistic approach that you're taking to this, and I know that kind of hits the three pillars of your organization. You're guiding people, I believe, to make better choices, or where to support folks who are fighting these causes, and this holistic approach that you're taking to look at sustainability, and then that last piece that we already talked about, doing so in a really financial, efficient way. So I really appreciate the thoughtfulness that you and your co-founder, and that was Aiden Alexander. Am I saying that correctly?
That's right.
Give Aiden some kudos as well. So the two of you really put together a very thoughtful approach to this, and I appreciate that. So
thank you.
Tell me a bit before we kind of transition in the interview here. I want to be respectful of your time, but you have this compassion calculator on your website, which I've used. I've played around with it to kind of see what my impact is on the world, because I really appreciate your perspective here. You're not asking people to like become vegans or give up your cultural heritage with regards to food, and you're just asking people and providing them tools to become more aware and having better choices. So I think that compassion calculator is one of those really great tools you have on your website. So what is that, and how can people use it?
Yeah. So this tool, the compassion calculator, is designed specifically for people who feel empathy for animals and feel compassion for animals. They don't like the way that animals are treated in factory farms. They know that it's wrong, which I think is most people. Like, I think there's good 75% of Americans believe that like the way that animals are treated in factory farms is bad. The majority of people know this and believe this. The problem is, as we've spoken about a couple of times in this conversation, often what animal charities or animal organizations or activists are telling people is, oh, you need to stop eating animals entirely, and like that's what you should do about this. And what we say is like, look, that can be a good thing to do, but it's not the only thing you can do to help. And you don't have to express your values and your empathy for animals in that way to be really effective and to make a difference for animals. A different way you can do it that can be actually just as effective, if not more effective, can be donating to organizations that are making a big difference in the lives of animals right now. And what our calculator does is it kind of gives you an interesting way to think about this, which is basically, it's like, imagine it like a carbon offsetter, but for your diet, right?
Yeah.
So you can use our sliders to say, okay, this is in a week, this is like roughly what I eat in terms of, like beef and pork and eggs and milk and all this sort of stuff. And we'll tell you, using our charities and the data we have, because they're very transparent, we know exactly, like, in expectation, how many animals that your dollar will help. And so we can show you, okay, given what you're eating, if you want to do as much good for animals, prevent as much suffering, through donating as you could expect to do if you sort of went completely 100% plant-based. This is how much you would need to donate. And it's a surprisingly small amount of money. So for the
really
average...
is.
Yeah.
I was surprised. That is a great way to describe it. I was playing with it and I was like, oh, that's it. So didn't mean to interrupt, but I was like, yeah, that is it. I wanted to emphasize that point. So go on, please. Sorry for the interruption.
No worries at all. So for the average omnivore, so we take an average of like a Western like sort of typical person's diet. It would cost $23 a month to offset all of the animal products that you're eating. Which is like very small, and that $23 would includes both your the environmental impact of your diet and the as I say, the animal suffering. The environmental impact is like crazily easy to offset. So actually $1 offsets a person's food miles, so the carbon produced in moving your food to where you are, for an entire year. Based on the aspects of the impact estimates of the charities that we work with. So that bit is like very, very easy. And then some of the rest of your $23 is all going to helping animals. And so, we think this is like a fun way to kind of think about this issue differently and also make a really big impact. We had a guy recently who donated $10,000 because he said, I'm going to do it all in one go for the rest of my life. So he worked out how long he thought he was going to live for, from now till, and how many animals he's going to eat. It was like, I think I need to offset 10 grand. So that's what he did in one go. So you could do it that way, or you could do it like most people, I think, probably would try and do it like on every month or something like
on
this.
A monthly basis. Yeah.
But
he's free and clear for the remainder of his life.
He's done.
Guilt free. I can have that extra hamburger if I want. Well, I think it's a brilliant tool. And there's a little, button that you can push to add a little bit of additional dollars for the carbon offset if you wanted to kind of, again, wrap it all into a sustainable package of animal welfare as well as the carbon offsets. And it's really, again, well thought through, really brilliant way that you guys have developed this and making it easy for folks, right? Because that's one of the barriers for people who may want to do something positive for the world. They have this idea that I could do something different or better, and we have all of these mental barriers in the way that, well, that's too hard. I don't know what to do, or I can't figure that out. And you guys have taken a whole lot of those barriers and removed them. You just go and you've done all the hard work for folks. So I think that's really wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think this is actually one of the consistent things that we hear and people hear is like, when it comes to factory farming, it feels really big, and it feels like this whole huge issue, and people think, oh, there's nothing I can really do about this, like I've got so many things going wrong in the world, like what am I supposed to do? And I think a big part of our message is actually like there are concrete, specific, meaningful things that we can do relatively easily, and that do make a genuine difference. And so you don't have to feel powerless, you don't have to feel like this is completely out of your control, because actually it's not. You can help. We try and give people the tools so that they can, feel empowered and feel that they can make a difference. And
right.
I think people just need, like, they don't have time to do all the research themselves, so we give them that so that they can choose whether they want to, take advantage of that.
Right. Yeah, I think you hit on a great point there, though, that the idea that the problems are so big, it's overwhelming. I can't do anything. When the reality is quite the opposite, that your small actions, like nobody has to fully change their entire way of living. It's not an either or proposition. Either I have to completely give up meat, and I have to completely give up all of these things that I know are bad for the future, or not, because it's just too big. And you're proving the point that no, like, everybody's small actions can then compound together to make a large positive impact. So those little things that we do matter. Those little things matter. They add up. So really, kudos to you for hitting on that. And are you still practicing law, or is this your life now? This is your current life now. You may pivot again some other time, but are you kind of doing two things at once here, or are you're all in on FarmKind right now?
Yeah, so I'm full. FarmKind is my full-time
full-time work these days, which is
Wonderful.
I'm very lucky to be able to do that. I am one of these weird lawyers who really actually quite likes law. So maybe one day I'll go back and do that. But for now, this is what I'm doing.
Perfect. Well, Thom, what can people do to support you and FarmKind? What's your call to action for folks now that they've heard this story and they realize, oh, I can do little things and that makes a difference. It doesn't have to be so large and overwhelming. And so what do you want people to do? What's your call to action?
Yeah, so I think the easiest thing, you can come and look at our website. So we are farmkind.giving, so www.farmkind.giving. On there, you can find the compassion calculator if that sounds interesting to you and you like that approach. We also have information and we have about all the charities we support, and you can find out about them. You can choose to donate to them, and you can find out about the issue of factory farming. We try and make our website a positive and optimistic approach to an issue that often can feel very, it's sad, right? But we try and focus on the hope and the positives that can be done. We don't have lots of horrible images of animals in suffering. We try and focus on making this a comfortable space to talk about an issue that can sometimes be difficult to talk about. So I would encourage people to come and have a look and see what they think.
Perfect. Well, I'll put on the show notes to the episode here the link to your website and all your social media platforms as well, so folks can follow you and support you and
Thank you.
Go give. I'd encourage everybody to go check out your website. It really is a great website, and it does have that upbeat feeling to you just described, to a topic that can obviously be very uncomfortable and has a deep, ugly side to it, right? I mean, factory farming is pretty horrendous. I imagine if most of us ever visited a factory farm to see what we're eating, we might feel a little differently after that visit, because it's pretty harsh, to say the least, type of industry. So thank you for what you're doing, and encourage everybody to go to your website and support you and really support the charities that you're supporting, because giving money to you is going to those charities. So
that's right.
Well, I end every episode talking about hope. We talk about hard things on this show, and factory farming is a hard thing. So I want to leave every episode with this idea that the future can be better. And that's the whole point of the program. So I ask everybody 3 questions about hope. And hope isn't this, pink cloud, fluffy emotion, right? I mean, people who study hope don't even identify it as emotion. It's a state of mind. It's this idea that has 3 kind of pieces to it. You have a vision for a better future. You have an idea of the steps you need to take to get to that better future, and you feel like you have a sense of agency, like there's something you can do to get there. You might not get there. It might be difficult. You might stumble along the way, and almost in my perspective, you have to do it with others. You can't do these things alone. But it's this idea of a vision for a better future, a plan of action, and a sense of agency. So I want to ask you 3 questions about your hopes, Thom, and I would encourage you, just give me the answer. Don't think too hard about it. So,
sure.
All right. So the first question about hope for you, Thom, is what is your vision for a better future? It can be for you personally, professionally, or for the world. What's your vision for a better future?
Yeah. So I look forward to the day when we don't have any more factory farming. I think this is I think it's very achievable, surprisingly achievable. And it would make such a difference, not only for animals, but for the environment and also our own health as well, because things like antibiotic resistant diseases and potential pandemics, all lots of these things come actually from animal agriculture. And so I think a world without factory farming would be better for humans, be better for animals, be better for the planet. And that's the thing that I'm hopeful for.
Perfect. And you kind of already answered the second question, but I always want to ask it regardless, because there's probably some other thoughts in there that you want to add to it. So why is that your vision for a better future?
Yeah, as I say, I think it's not only desirable, but I think it's kind of necessary, because it's such a big, factory farming is such a big contributor to things like the climate change and antibiotic disease resistance is like a interesting issue. It's expected to be the leading killer of humans by 2050, and we feed 3/4 of current antibiotics to animals. So these really big reasons why we have to deal with this problem, but this opportunity to have a different, as we see things like cultivated meat coming on, this real opportunity to reinvent our food system, to move forward to a better, more future food system that produces the food we need, but in a modern, sustainable, healthy, and environmentally safe way.
Perfect. So last question, asking you to use your imagination here a little bit. Imagine that the future you just described is happening today. So we're living in that future where factory farming no longer exists, and we still have, ample access to food, and it's a healthier, more sustainable world for us as individuals and for the animals on farms. How does that make you feel that that's the world we're living in today?
Yeah, I think it is just, I find when I think about this, and when I think about being around people who care about this issue, there's this sense of calm that you get, because often in the world, actually when you start to think about it, you can see it all around you, right? Because we're always animal products are so much part of kind of everything we do, and if you're not careful, it can be a reminder constantly of this problem. And when you take that away, there's this amazing just feeling of calm, feeling of contentedness. It's like when I'm just snuggling with one of my cats, and you just feel like this is good. This is where I want to be. And I think that a world without this animal suffering would be a bit like that, I think.
Yeah, I love that description. A world without animal suffering would be like cuddling with one of your pets. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful way to end the show. So Thom, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for what you're doing to make the world a better place. And I really appreciate you reaching out and asking to share your story, because I've learned a lot. I've gained a lot from this conversation, and I know the audience has undoubtedly gained a lot from this too. So thank you so much for being here. Keep doing the great work that you're doing, and I'll let you leave with the last word. Is there anything else you want to add? Yeah.
This was really fun. I enjoyed myself quite a bit, and it's really nice to talk to you and to your listeners about an issue that I care a lot about, but I think a lot of people do as well, but don't always know how to engage with. And so, I hope people have felt a little bit empowered, a little bit more optimistic about this issue, and have, if they want to, a sense of what they could do to be part of the solution.
Perfect. Well, cheers. Look forward to staying in touch with you and seeing Absolutely. How your journey goes to make the world a better place. So I wish you all the best, Thom.
Awesome.
Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, sir. Bye.
What a great conversation with Thom Norman. Today we explored the emotional complexities of food choices, the challenges of factory farming, and how FarmKind is empowering people to make a real difference. Thom shared his personal journey from law to advocacy, offering insights on how even small actions can lead to significant change. We also heard about the compassion calculator, a tool that helps individuals see the real impact of their choices on animal welfare. And one of the things I truly appreciated about Thom's message today is his acknowledgement that these conversations aren't easy. Food is personal. It's deeply tied to our cultures, our families, and our traditions. And discussing the suffering of animals in factory farms can also be incredibly uncomfortable. But by addressing that difficulty right from the start, Thom opened the door for a more thoughtful and compassionate dialogue. It's a brilliant approach that makes his advocacy all the more impactful. I also want to recognize that not everyone, myself included, may be able or willing to give up meat or dairy entirely. And that's okay. What Thom reminds us is that even small, intentional steps can make a real difference. Supporting cruelty-free farming practices, choosing more sustainable food options, and donating to organizations like FarmKind are all ways we can contribute to the solution. So I want to thank Thom for sharing his inspiring story and for his dedication to making the world a better place. Thom's passion and commitment are truly making a difference. And to you, I hope Thom's story has left you feeling inspired. Whether it's learning more about the impact of your own food choices, supporting local farms, or sharing today's episode to spark conversations in your own community, your actions matter. And if you enjoyed this conversation, please consider supporting Stories Sustain Us by sharing this episode with family and friends, liking and following the show, and leaving me a comment. Your support helps me to continue sharing these powerful stories, so thank you again for all your support. And be sure to join me for the next episode of Stories Sustain Us, releasing on April 22nd, where we'll hear from an incredible guest who's working to transform rural communities in Tanzania by empowering women. Her inspiring work is driving educational success for children, strengthening communities, and creating sustainable economic independence for women. You're not going to want to miss this episode, so catch it on April 22nd at storiessustainus.com, wherever you listen to podcasts, and on YouTube. Thank you so much for being here today. Keep making the world a better place. Until next time, I'm Stephen Schauer. Please take care of yourself and each other. Take care.